ready? Good evening, everybody. Okay. Before we start tonight, let me explain what I'm doing here. And I want to take a few minutes in order to clear up the misinformation on the proposed motion coming up later on this evening. I've read online and received a number of phone calls and emails on the subject of the boundary expansion. It is important to understand that neither the city nor me have any preconceived notions on the outcome of the process. We have not stated that we want to take over Coombs or Arrington or Whiskey Creek or any other area. As suggested, this is not a tax grab by the mayor. In fact, we don't know what the financial outcome will be for probably another 2 years or so. No, I'm not doing this so that Costco can come to Parksville. In fact, nobody in the city has even talked to Costco. The reality is that the last time we looked at boundary expansion was in 1995, 24 years ago. A lot has changed since that time, and I felt it was time to review our very inefficient boundary lines. Secondly, everyone on council has been confronted with how fast the city has grown over the last 5 years. The fact is, we are one of the slowest growing communities on Vancouver Island. We have grown at less than 2% per year for the last 5 years. And even with that, we are reaching a point where there is little industrial land left and limited residential land for future growth. The growth most people see has all taken place on the outskirts of the town in the RDN. The RDN has received all the development cost charges and collect all the property taxes for the new areas when Parksville provides a substantial amount of the infrastructure for these areas. I've had a number of people say that they pay for their own infrastructures, and to a certain point, that's true. They pay for the local roads in front of their houses and for snow removal and garbage collection and so on. There's no doubt about that. But the Parksville taxpayer pay for all the roads when you travel through our town. Roads that you would use when you go to the grocery store or to the doctor's. The citizens of Parksville pay to maintain the park you go to see the fireworks at or the sandcastles. On top of that, the city pays over $100,000, almost 1% of the tax revenues collected, to acquire and maintain regional parks and trails, for which we don't have one single park or trail within the boundaries of Parksville. There are many, many examples of infrastructure that the people living on the outskirts or of Parksville take advantage of, but do not pay for. I did have people say, well, those that live outside of Parksville, they shop at our stores, so that pays for the infrastructure. That just doesn't work. If you think about it logically, that would mean that since the residents of Parksville shop at our own stores, we wouldn't have to collect any property taxes if that were the case. So the purpose of this motion tonight, and this is what I want you to hear very clearly, because this is all it's about. The purpose of this motion is simple. It is to instruct staff to have a report completed by a third party that takes into consideration all aspects of any boundary expansion, good or bad, or if it should be considered at all, it will take into account the effects of such a decision. You cannot have an intelligent conversation without knowing the facts. Again, the purpose of this study is to collect all the facts. Then let's talk then. Let's have a civil conversation at that time, and if necessary, a plan that is well thought through. This is the first step of a 6-step process, mandated by law. Each step is to ensure that the public has an opportunity to be heard. I promise each and every one of you here tonight that you will have a chance to be heard. Should we ask the province to make any changes, you will have the chance to be heard. In the long run, this will have to be beneficial to as many people in the area as we can possibly make it. You have to bear in mind that this is a process that has exceptional provincial oversight. It takes an order of council from the provincial cabinet to get this approved. Even if every single person in the area is happy with the idea, the province can still turn it down. As always, I'm open for conversation. Please give me a call, send me an email, come and see me on Thursday, every second Thursday for coffee with the mayor if you want. But right now, all we're going to be doing is talking about whether we should go forward with step one of a 6-step process. We have not made any decisions, none whatsoever. So please, let's just bear that in mind. There's not going to be a lot of conversation about this. We're going to go on with our meeting right now. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll go to the meeting. Good evening and welcome to the October 7th regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes we are gratefully gathered on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples. Before we start the proceedings this evening, Councillor Patterson would like to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I wish to take this opportunity to congratulate the Executive Director of the Parksville and District Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Kim Burden, who's in the audience this evening, on receiving the Executive of the Year award. This award recognizes excellence in management from the Chamber of Commerce executives in Canada. It is truly an honor for our local chamber and our community to see Kim recognized on the national stage for his excellence. We are fortunate to have someone as dedicated and capable at the helm of the chamber, assisting businesses and contributing to economic development in our city and in our region. Kim's commitment to his work, to his staff, his community, his innovation and experience are an asset to Parksville. So on behalf of Council, I'd like to say congratulations, Kim, on this well-deserved honor. Thank you.
Well done, Kim. On our consent agenda, I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations, number 1, A, B, and C. So mover and a seconder. Councillor Wilson, Councillor O'Brien. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Delegations. We have 2 delegations tonight on the agenda. The first one being the Oceanside Community Arts Council installation of public art. Please come on up and identify yourself and go forward.
Yeah, I just need to make sure the video's going for it. Of course, I had this all.
Where did you put it?
I had it all up here working. Here we go. Okay. I'll sit down. Good evening, Your Worship, Mayor, and Council. We are here tonight to do a couple of things. One is to show you a little video for a little entertainment and for the people to enjoy, and also to make a proposal. So I would like to first say that tonight I'm wearing sort of three hats. One is from the OCAC, which is the Oceanside Community Arts Council. As a representative from that, one of the mandates for the Arts Council is to bring arts and culture to the Oceanside community. That's one hat, and the other hat, of course, is as an artist myself. I keep trying to get around as in my arts community. And the third is to present the proposal from the Soft Shores Committee. So tonight, I'd like to introduce our team. There's Jennifer Bate from the Macmillan. She's the director of the Macmillan Arts Center from OCAC. Christopher Smith, and I don't know if our fourth party is here is Nelson Shaw, who does beautiful sculpture, metal sculpture stuff that perhaps you've seen. So those are the four people that are, three people that are here tonight and four people. I'd like to see if we can get this little video up, and someone was going to help me make sure that it was one of the first ones. It's on the, yeah. We loaded it first. It's called South Shores. Maybe it's that one. Yeah. Can we make that big? Okay. Does it have music? Sound? There is beautiful music that goes with it, and obviously we don't have the sound on this. This is the installation was last summer from July through to September the 1st at the Macmillan Arts Center. If you had an opportunity to see it, we did a group thing, three artists together, two glass people and a metal artist. I was interested in doing a herring ball, and of course Christopher, you can see these lovely cast glass fish. He's now called the Glass Salmon King around town. And the metalwork is from Nelson Shaw, Blue Heron Steel Arts. And if you had an opportunity to see it, this was a centerpiece. There were three large pieces of the metal bull kelp going from up to 6 to 8 feet tall, and Christopher's salmon in them. And then there was my herring ball that had like almost 400 herring in it, enclosed in the net, and the net was called, my herring ball was called The Ones That Got Away. For those who got to see it, there was one red herring in there. Hello. Well, they're just saying how wonderful it is, I know. Oh, who's that? And you get some.
I've never seen anything like it, and I believe that this needs a very wide audience.
Andrew did beautiful guitar music on the back. You didn't get to hear it all, and he's here tonight, too. We propose that the centerpiece from the Soft Shores exhibition be installed right outside these doors in the center of the atrium. That's our proposal. We further propose that the centerpiece help mark the 75th anniversary of Parksville, and we would like it to be installed before January 2020. We propose an extremely modest cost, for the three artists to produce this, more to make sure that we have it out there and available for people to enjoy. And it's also part of the artists actively promoting artistic beautification of the city. The project would require some small amount of help from the city parks department to help us install it, to be able to put it in place, and with lighting and so forth. Obviously, you saw the lighting really makes an impact out there. And we believe that this would be a wonderful opportunity for you to join us, the artist, to celebrate the city's connection to our natural wonderland and the bountiful sea that we so love and enjoy and need to preserve. I would like to introduce Jennifer Bate, again, the director of the OCAC and the Macmillan Arts Center, and she has a few words.
Good evening. We had the pleasure of hosting this exhibit, as Bob mentioned, from July the 3rd until September the 1st this summer. At the Macmillan Arts Center, we welcomed almost 8,000 people, visitors from our community, but also to Vancouver Island. And I believe that it had a massive impact on the people that came here, certainly the people that got an artistic lens view of the conversations that we have as an Oceanside community. I'd like to see this piece be a legacy, not only from the exhibit, but also a way for the City of Parksville to show, in an artistic way, what makes us part of an Oceanside community here in Parksville. So that's why I'm here.
This piece is all about place. I mean, it's this place that we occupy in the world, this place that we occupy with the people who were here before, with the environment that we share, with protecting it, with an artistic eye to looking at it from a place of beauty and honor and respect. You know, it is about recognition of this place and the first peoples who are at the table with us in stewardship and responsibility to look after this natural gift we've been given. It's a beautiful place that we live in, and we really need to honor it daily.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It is a beautiful piece. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Without offending any other artists in Parksville, it's one of the nicest ones I've seen, and from the three artists that put it together. Congratulations on that. Are there any questions? Councillor Wilson.
Through you, Your Worship, this isn't a question. I would like to actually just say, I was going to say something similar, but you said it so well that I don't have to say it. I would like to put a motion, though. Can I do that at this time? Or would you like to have everybody?
First, and then
all right,
we can,
all right.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to the delegation tonight. Thank you for a great presentation. I was absolutely blown away by your display at the MAC anyways this last summer. It was amazing. Just one question I have here is, are you suggesting then that this display would be on permanent display in the atrium? Are you suggesting that you are putting it to the city of Parksville for a modest amount?
Very, very modest, yes. There's 2 or 3 parts to that.
Right.
One is the installation cost, which would be, we talked earlier about the city departments that we need to hijack to
Right.
to the roof. But that would only take like a day.
Sure.
And then we'd need to have power to do the lighting from below to show the fish in the middle, and lighting from above to show the bats. So we need electrical lighting and just the help installation. We will be there to install it, but we just need to have some city help to do that.
Thank you for that. I think it's an amazing display, and thank you so much for your generosity, because this truly captures the essence of Parksville, what we're all about, before, now, and the future. I hope. So the thing is I think it's very timely. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've been a fairly large supporter of the arts in Parksville on my time on council, and I don't think I've ever missed one of the exhibitions. This truly was one of my favorites.
I think we would be honored, absolutely, if possible, to have it here in the city of Parksville and to be able to have that. You talked a little bit about 8,000 or so people that saw this exhibition. It had a lot of different aspects to it as well, with children and waterworks and events outside of the MAC as well. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that as well, spreading awareness throughout the Oceanside area. It truly is community-minded, and again, was, like I said, one of my favorite exhibits. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fraz.
Couple of comments there. First, I just want to say thanks for your presentation here. This art piece is absolutely stunning. I'm honored that you've offered this to the city of Parksville for us to consider. A question I have towards staff is for the placement out in the foyer there, if as far as the events go, utilizing that space, if they think it's a good location, or as far if it would interfere with any future time, considering that would be a permanent installation. Is there any comments? Or?
That's to be seen. I would like to see the base of it being about probably 2 to 3 feet off the floor, and that would keep people from trying to climb it, mostly.
Is a concern.
I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler, I missed you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Through your worship, thank to you all for coming tonight. It's really it's an honor to have such great artists in this town. I think it's been building over the years. We've really attracted some amazing artists, and having somebody like Bob himself come here from Vancouver, bring his shop here. I was in the McMillan 3 or 4 times this year to show people. I brought people there to show them the display, and I've been to McMillan before many times to just to go in and see different stuff, but this really put us on the map, I think, and so I appreciate all the extra work and the time spent putting that amazing piece together. I mean, it was a really amazing piece. So, with that being said, I'd love to see it here in the City Hall. It would be something you could be proud of showing people. So, thank you.
Well, since we have you here and we can ask you questions until the motion is made, that's kind of why I'm dragging on this one a bit. What is the estimate on the total cost? Are you figuring for us to, so we know?
We counted this out, the 3 artists, and we would like to see the total on our part, just the exhibition part itself is $27,500.
Okay.
That would not include the installation fee.
Okay. So we're talking $30,000 in total is what?
30 or less, because the lighting, it comes in at maybe 25, 3,000, something like around 30,000.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Pardon?
That, by the way, that's a very good price. Yeah. Okay.
Just before we go, Councillor Wilson, because it is a problem in the fact that when it becomes that type of a price tag, it's our obligation that we have to commission a piece of art rather than to just acquire one without going through the process. So that's something that we're going to have to look at.
Yes, I am asking a question. I was going to mention, pardon? Yes, and I was, well, not of the delegation, but with what you had said was something that I was going to bring up, whether we had the funds in contingency or not, and whether we could approve that tonight.
Through your worship. So I think tonight what we're talking about, the motion I'm going to make is that this be, we're not purchasing it tonight. We're going to, I'm making a motion for a small amount of funds from our contingency so that it can hang for the 75th. And then I think down the road we can figure out whether or not we can put out an RFP for this. So I'll go ahead and make this motion. I would like to see approval from council to waive the requirement to provide notice for this motion. Thank you. That staff be directed to seek the necessary approvals from the building owners to install the soft shore centerpiece from the soft shore exhibition in the atrium of City Hall in celebration of the City of Parksville's 75th anniversary, and further that associated costs of up to $3,500 to install and light the artwork be approved from the council contingency. No, I think that's fine. I'm hoping that that's enough money, and I believe our CAO indicated that it would be approximately $1,000 for staff time and approximately $2,500 for lighting, so I think we might be good with that.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask the delegation if they would agree and if they're with the idea of essentially borrowing it for the 75th anniversary for this time until we could sort out what might come from that.
Yes, we would. We think it's a piece that belongs here.
Thank you. We appreciate that generosity. All right, any other questions? Then I will put the question to the council. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next delegation, BC Housing and Island Crisis Care Society.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Heidi Hartman, and I'm the Director of Operations for BC Housing for Vancouver Island Region. I'm here along with Violet Hayes and Corey Corfield as tenants of the Provincial Rental Housing Corporation as tenants to the lease at 222 Corfield. We're here to request consideration to operate a social enterprise out of the site, Orca Place, 222 Corfield. The lease modification agreement speaks to the permitted use at 222 Corfield. The social enterprise, Handmade for Hope, we feel meets the definition of permitted uses and will be described in more detail by Island Crisis Care.
Thanks. Good evening. I think you all received a copy of the proposal that Corey put together for us. And so rather than go through it, it is a social enterprise where we're really hoping that the residents of the building will get some skills around employment, running a business, all those kind of things. And so I wonder if there's any questions for us.
Thanks, Violet and Heidi, and nice to meet you as well, Corey. Thanks for coming to appear for us today. I just want to say with your manager Lisa at the building there. I think she's been doing a great job, so I wanted to pass that along too. I know you guys have been working very hard. Starting point for me, just regarding this proposal here, is I know that you guys have formed a community advisory committee. They've just started up here in the last month or so. I'm wondering if you guys have presented this to the committee, what their input's been, and if they're endorsing this proposal.
We actually haven't presented it to the committee, so yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, just we felt that this was maybe the first step in just making sure that we were going to be able to run the program within the site before we kind of take any steps further with it.
And the other piece is that it's dependent on funding. We have to receive funding for the startup for it, which we don't have yet either. So,
I guess for me, that really is a starting point too. Just considering there is a committee there, I think it would be important to have their input and to see if they have any concerns too, or things that they would like to see. Otherwise, having an advisory committee, I don't think is really serving its purpose if we were to be making decisions ahead of them.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks very much for coming and your presentation. I looked at it very carefully. I've got about 8 questions. However, I'm going to limit them to 2, and these are at-the-point questions. Is this business for Orca residents only?
Yes.
It is. And if there's any profit, which I looked over all your profit and loss statement and so on, and I won't tell you what I thought of that. But if there's any profits, does it go back into Orca Place, or where does it go?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so as a social enterprise run and developed by Island Crisis Care Society, so it would any profits would go back into the organization, so Island Crisis Care, and typically with our donated funds or fundraising, what we fundraise within Oceanside typically would stay within Oceanside. So that I would anticipate that would be the case.
So what you're saying is the profits go to ICCS?
If so, it would probably go back into the program and increasing the program and more supplies and that sort of thing. So that would be, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to the committee. Just a couple questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think it's a great idea. I think it's amazing what you're planning on doing. It's going to help a lot of people. My first question is on your sales end of it. Looking through your statement anyways, it looked like your sales were going to be online for one thing, and also in pop-up stores or at markets like the Craig Street markets and that type of thing, which is a great opportunity for them. If you could confirm, there would be no retail sales on site?
Yeah, so I can confirm that. This really came out of Island Crisis Care Society was able to have a booth at the Nanaimo Commercial Street Market over the summer, and we had items that were made by volunteers of our organization and sold the items through that, and it was a really great experience, which kind of gave birth to this idea of having residents and program participants help with making items and selling them. So there'd be no retail application for it, but we'd be looking at like a Shopify store online, which again would give residents opportunity to learn about starting an online business, which is a huge asset for somebody, especially in a community like Parksville. And then we would look at doing markets continuing through the year. There's Christmas markets and summertime.
Thank you. As a follow-up, Your Worship, also as Councillor Guerrero was referring to anyways, any profits, that I would maybe suggest that any profits would be paid back to the participants, like in a form of a stipend or anything,
yeah, so we've worked with, we actually had a conversation with the Career Center here in Parksville and looked at different models that they use for similar programs, and it's usually a stipend that goes to participants. So we haven't determined exactly what that would look like, but it would be something along those lines.
Right, and as I noticed on one of your items for sale type of thing, I noticed that you painted wooden signs and so forth, which are very, so I'm just here to tell you I'm a woodworker. I'll be very happy to volunteer if I can come in and help and cut out blanks for you, whatever it is, and actually teach your teachers or whatever. I'd be very willing to help with that anyways, because it's, they're very popular. So awesome. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor O'Brien mentioned one or two things that I was looking at. I'm really optimistic. I like the eco-line aspect. I think it works for our community and area. My question is towards grants. Where do you foresee finding grants available?
So there is a grant that we are sort of in the process of applying through Spark BC. So it's SPARC, and I don't remember what that stands for, but Spark BC, that has a specific community grant that we believe would be a great fit for this project. And then from there, we'd be looking at other options. We've been approached by community members who have offered to donate equipment and supplies to us as well. So we're hopeful in that.
Follow up, Your Worship?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Timeline.
It's dependent. Well, it's definitely dependent on funding. So yeah, we would just have to wait, and then we'd have to hire the person to oversee it. And yeah, so we really don't have a timeline yet.
We are in the process. It is a very volunteer-intensive program, so we would use a lot of volunteers from the community to teach skills and to help the participants. And so we are actually in the middle of our volunteer training right now. Our second session of 3 will be tomorrow night. So we've started that process of getting some volunteers trained up and yeah, ready for that.
And I'd just like to say that we listened to council when you did the tour, because this is what I heard a lot of, was that you would like to see us doing some of those skills, teaching pre-employment things. So, yeah.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, through your worship. I do have some concerns, though, but I'm really happy that we did have that conversation and some of those ideas are coming forth. So I think it's a really ambitious business plan you have. And my concern in reading through a few things are the 70-30, which the business plan, what concerns me about it is that it leaves it open to the Island Crisis Care Program participants, not Orca Place or 222 Corfield Place participants. And I think in that wording, that leaves it rather open to the possibility that people are going to come from outside of 222 Corfield, and that we have to consider the residents who live there, the foot traffic, the extra foot traffic, and just the privacy of the people who live at 222. So it's all well and fine. I agree, use that space, it's wonderful. I think it should be specific only to the residents who live at 222 Corfield, and that's it. But I think in the wording, if you read your wording and you go through it, I've gone through it about 4 or 5 times, and I actually have 4 residents approach me about it and say it looks like it's too open to just your ICCS rather than being specific, and that money should go back to the people who were, for your supplies or whatever. And perhaps maybe what else we felt from it was that it's quite an ambitious plan. So does it, there we do have the Career Center and a few other things, and as you know, the location of 222 Corfield had to be downtown so that people could access all of those. So it's great that you're doing some of those training skills in classes. I just, and I also want to say, are they employable skills as well? So, but good for you. Just I think that the wording for me has to be a little clearer about who comes and goes. Thank you.
Any other questions for the delegation? Please.
Do you mind if I just respond to that?
No.
So I think that we would definitely be open to changing the wording. As Island Crisis Care Society, because we do operate services in other communities besides Parksville, this could be a really potentially great program that we could run in our other sites as well, which is why we left the wording a little bit more open, so that the program as it would be run at Orca Place would just be open to Orca Place residents. However, if we ran the program, say, at Samaritan House in Nanaimo, that would be for Samaritan House residents, that sort of thing. So that's why it was maybe a little bit more open in the wording. But like I say, we'd be willing to change that for sure.
Any other questions? Councillor Fraz?
So I say thanks for clarifying that as well. That was something that I had spotted it as well, and I'm glad that you had brought that up. Just because you had mentioned that hearing back from council and kind of what our thoughts were for uses for those spaces there too. In my mind, I had thought that health and wellness would have been a great opportunity for using that space as things like gym equipments or stretching mats, or having that kind of an open health and wellness space, considering the aim of the supportive housing there. I do think that it's a bit early coming to council right now, seeing that the building has just opened and the dust is still settling there. The last that I heard, they were still filling some vacancies in the building. I don't know if that's been completed yet. But as well, I noticed that they've added security for the people that were loitering around the building, and just kind of still getting some of those, the early kinks kind of worked out. I would like to see that have a little bit of time settled in there before making decisions on programming and what's going to be utilizing in those spaces. And particularly, like I mentioned, since the advisory committee hasn't had a chance to have input on this too, I do think that is really important. Otherwise, it's undermining what their work is doing for Orca Place and having the neighborhood have their input. So what I would like to see come out of this is that we refer this back to their advisory committee, have their opportunity for input before we move forward on this. So.
Sorry, Councillor Patterson?
Thank you. Can I have a time frame?
Good question.
I think that would be up to their meeting with their advisory committee and sorting that out. I don't know what stage they're at with it, if they have their terms of reference sorted out, or if they've, so.
The next meeting is October 24th, or 5th, somewhere in there anyway, the Thursday.
Within a couple of weeks. All right. All right. Councillor Patterson?
Thank you. So just as a follow-up, I would hope that after that meeting that you...
Sorry.
Do we need to receive the?
Well, that's just what I was asking.
Okay. I'm hoping that you'll come back as soon as possible. So you may need to fill out a delegation or some sort of appearance. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm getting my advice from the right hand here, and we can refer this back, and then you can just send us some correspondence and we can bring it back on to council at that point in time. You don't have to come and make a whole new presentation or anything like that. I mean, we're at that point. Everybody in agreement with that? So all we have to do is receive it for today. So I'll need a motion to receive. Councillor Greer, second by Councillor O'Brien. All in favor? Good. Great job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. November 4th is our meeting right after that one. So Mr. Russell, consideration of a development permit for a 3-story mixed-use building at 154 Weld Street. Please give us your best shot on this one.
Certainly, if I may, Your Worship, for council consideration this evening is issuance of a development permit for a new building within the downtown development permit area number 1. This building has been designed by an architect as well as landscaping by a landscape architect. It has been reviewed by the advisory design panel with a positive endorsement. There are a couple minor parking relaxations to this proposal with respect to dimensions, just to fit the parking on a fairly small property, as well as there is a cash contribution towards the city's parking requirements in lieu of one space. The recommendations are as per the agenda.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for the motion. Moved by Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Greer. Discussion? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, through the mayor. I just want to say that I was a liaison on the ADP when this project was reviewed, and I agree with the panel's decision for the development permit with the variances. I feel the building integrates well with the other existing buildings. There were two different roof lines, one being partly residential, one being commercial. So I think the roof line integrates quite well, and we also gained 4 additional rental units, and the developer is also adding solar ready. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to comment on the positive nature of this building, seeing it allows for 4 two-bedroom residential suites, which is going to add to the downtown densification that we've been pushing so hard. And so I'm pleased to see people living upstairs in the downtown core anyways, and this speaks well. I hope we see a lot more developments like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler?
Thank you, Worship. Just a comment again, just to say, it's great to see what's going on Weld Street. There's some really nice buildings there. It's really kind of upgrading the whole downtown and hoping that's going to spill over into some of the other areas as we see new developers coming in, seeing that we're open to some of these developments, and especially where we can get that densification with apartments and hopefully reasonably priced apartments. That's really important too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other points? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll try and have this somewhat directed to the application. But with DCCs and the construction of this new building, they'll be looking at the frontage of their property. Would that be correct?
Sorry, you're asking if they have to do off-site work improvements?
Is there any off-site work improvements or sidewalk? Because I know that Weld Street, we've had some discussions with budget aspects and everything, so I'd like to see some completion.
It's triggered. It's triggered by the building permit. So at the time of building permit, they're required to bring the works in front of the property up to current municipal standards.
Okay. Any other questions? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. Mr. Russell. Next one, please.
For council consideration this evening is an application for a variance permit at 530 Temple Street. The application is to legalize the siting of a pergola that was constructed in contravention to the existing setback requirements of the single-family residential zone, being 7.5 meters as a requirement from both the front and exterior lot lines. In the case of this pergola, it is 5.5 meters from the front lot line and 4.9 meters from the exterior lot line. Should the motion be successful this evening, that would authorize staff to proceed with notice to notify surrounding properties.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor O'Brien. Would you like to speak to this, Councillor Wilson? Okay, fair enough. No, I have met with the owners of this property. They understand it was a mistake that was made when it was built, and I mean, when you look at it on the corner, I can understand how the mistake was made. So I would support this this development permit. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. Pardon? Okay. Mrs. Tardif, would you please give us the background on the issue that you're...
Thank you, Your Worship. In 2020, the city will celebrate its 75th birthday. The city was officially incorporated as a city on June 19th, 1945. In June of this year, staff received approval from council to issue a request for proposals for event management and coordination for birthday celebrations, and also proceed with implementation of a 75th birthday select committee. A report will come to council later this evening to consider members for the committee. This report is seeking direction from council to proceed with the proposed 75th birthday events as outlined in staff's report. This would be 2 signature one-day weekend events identified as a street festival and a beach festival to be held during summer 2020, most likely over a 2 or 3-week period. This report also requests approval to place a number of banners along the Jensen and Corfield sides of this building. Staff's recommendations are included in the report.
Thank you. Before I ask for a mover and a seconder, Councillor Greer, you had something to announce?
Yes, I have to excuse myself because I have a conflict of interest.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, I need a mover and a seconder for moved by Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor O'Brien. Discussion. Councillor Frass? Okay, we're not voting yet, so it's okay.
I'm just looking maybe for a little bit of clarification on this process that we've had here now. When we last discussed this, we approved for a select committee to be formed and for an RFP to go out. It was my kind of expectation that the committee would be formed and be part of the RFP process, because now we have an RFP in front of us with some recommendations, and I think it's doing a lot of the work what the committee would do. So my question would be like, what is left for the committee to do, and what budget would they have to be working with? Because it seems like this budget amount is more for this RFP proposal than for a working committee.
If I may, Your Worship.
You may.
The response to the RFP was very different than I thought I was going to get. And in retrospect, I think this was a surprise. But thinking about it, I think then it would free up the committee to do perhaps some of the smaller community events that involve different organizations, perhaps like the PDBA, the Parksville Museum, and not have to do the real grunt work of large-scale events, where we need an event management company to do that. I did build a wee bit into the budget, additional events and contingency of $4,000 to do, and I'm not making a decision for the committee, but maybe it's a Sunday afternoon at the Parksville Museum that celebrates our history, and it's a tea and a bunch of other things. Putting on large-scale events does, in my mind, require an event management company to manage it, and that was the intent of the RFP that was issued.
Okay, thank you. It does seem like a very exciting ideas that they have in mind there too, so I just thought I'd get that clarification there. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I can echo somewhat Councillor Frass's concerns here. I totally understand the appointment of the event manager. It's a great idea, and it has to happen in a case like this, but may I suggest that there's some flexibility built into the event manager's plan so that they have the liaison, having a liaison relationship with the committee to give suggestions as to what direction it goes, and not just like, like the small little items on the outside. If they have some issues that they would like to have maybe incorporate into it, that they would be able to work with the event manager to try and get those prepared, just to have a flexible program in a somewhat fluid stage.
Yeah. If I may, Your Worship, that is built into the RFP and their response. They're basically the main liaison between staff and the select committee. They will facilitate the meetings, and they'll co-chair the meetings. So along with whomever is chosen by council as the chair. And the idea is that they will work very closely, because they will need the committee to help with those events as well as volunteers, perhaps to help coordinate volunteers.
Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just again, a comment. Really appreciate the time and effort put into this. Debbie, it's been, I know it's a lot of work. You did a great deal of work on these, the fire department anniversary too, which was really an awesome event. I think just echoing both what Councillor Frass and O'Brien said is, I think I want to make sure, because we're throwing someone in front of the group here, we've selected them, hand-selected 2 people each, and I want to make sure that they get a real say in things, because that's why we selected them. So that's just one thing I wanted to say, and although I realize that there has to be the main body of an event planning group here, because it is a very massive task. So thank you very much.
Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. And although I echo some of what my fellow councillors are saying, I'm going to not be voting in favor. I feel that we put a great deal of money out to planners and scheduling and all sorts of different things. This doesn't leave any money for really true events. And although we will probably tag on with different organizations and that in the community, I foresee us going considerably over budget, and that because we don't have any money left, and that for an actual event or something else, you're having, like I said, different organizations and everything kind of looking after that with the people that we've looked at to put forward for ideas and everything, and having to work with an events team. So unfortunately, I have some serious reservations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll make mine if I... Oh, Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, through your worship. I actually hadn't really thought about that until Councillor Patterson said that there wouldn't really be much money left over. Can you address that for us? Start of, like, for events, like if we're paying this much money, I think it's $65,000 for the event planner, but what would be included in that? No events, really. I'll let you speak.
If I may, Your Worship, that $65,000 is two significant one-day events. One would be a street festival, one would be a beach festival. And you know, if we can get away with it, we'd go back to building sandcastles on the beach. It would be a full day from early in the morning till late at night. And that includes, and I apologize if I've confused anything, but that is not, a portion of that money is for event management, but that's everything from tables, chairs, porta potties, site crew, musicians, chalk artists, just 2 days of really incredible events. So it isn't, there's a portion of that $65,000 for event management, but the majority of that money is going to those 2-day events and everything that happens during those days.
Councillor Wilson, follow-up?
Thank you, through your worship. Sorry, thanks, Deb. I appreciate you explaining that. I'm sorry I missed it, but thank you. That makes sense.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Deb. I appreciate that as well.
Just so we're clear, I mean, we're looking at the select committee to be the overall, the final approvals on everything. They will work with the committee, or with the event planners, but they will be the ones that make all the decisions. The group of them will make the decisions on everything that's happening. It's not, the event planners will make decisions. They're just making recommendations as to what the events will be, and then all the detail and everything will have to be put together and gone through with the select committee that we have established, or that we wish to establish, which will be coming up a little bit later, if I'm not mistaken. So everybody's going to have lots to do on this, and it's going to be a pretty exciting time. Unfortunately, I don't expect that I'll be here for the 100th anniversary, so I'd like to see this one done as well as it can be. So anyways, I need a motion and yeah. Pardon? Okay, right, and seconded by, okay. All right. Any further discussion on all of this? Let's call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Somebody could probably get Councillor Greer out of the, we don't have to. We can leave him there and tell him it was a long, long discussion if we want. But Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, I'd like to move on to the next item on the agenda, which was the Grant and Aid Select Committee Fall 2019 Grant and Aid applications. Myself and Councillor Greer were on the committee anyways to make the decisions. They're tough as they always are because $2,500 is not a lot of money. We chose at this particular date and time that the grant and aid applications received for the period ending August 30th, 2019 be approved as follows. Access Oceanside Association, $1,200. Mount Aerosmith Pipe Band Association, $265. Oceanside Community Safety Volunteers, Block Watch Division, $370. Oceanside Hospice Society, $400. Ravensong Aquatic Club, $265, for a grand total of $2,500. These are the recommendations made by the committee, and we would expect these to be paid with approval tonight without further delay. Thank you. And I would like to move the following, yes.
Okay, Councillor Greer would be seconding it, I would expect. All right. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's a thankless job, gentlemen. Thank you very much for doing it. And now to our engineering staff. You're on. Operations side, sorry.
If I may, Your Worship, this is a verbal report regarding the future of the railway station water tower, and it's in response to Council Resolution 19-320 from the September 4th regular meeting of Council, and I'll just state what that motion was. That staff be authorized to engage the services of Herald Engineering Limited up to $5,000 to obtain a detailed cost estimate on remediation options for the water tower currently located at the railway station at 600 Alberti Highway, and that the funding be taken from council contingency. So, as a result of that resolution, I handed out we just got this report, and we felt it was important for council to get it, to give you the opportunity to review it. But what I'll do is I'll just kind of go through it a little bit here and give you an idea what the options were that were looked at and the costs. So there were basically three options, A, B, and C, that were looked at regarding the tower. The first one was to demolish and remove the structure. The second was to rehabilitate the structure in place. And the third was to deconstruct the tank tower and move and rehabilitate the tower in a new location. And the new location was assumed to be somewhere in the city of Parksville, of course. So, so that was done. And if you look at the report in front of you, second page goes through in detail in point form what's entailed in each one of those options. Basically, the demolition would be obviously to demolish and remove and dispose of all of the components of the tower, including the concrete footings. Option B, rehabilitate structure in place. So there's going to be a significant amount of work. The tank will have to be lifted off and lowered to the ground, and a lot of work done on that. The timbers themselves, there's quite a bit of insect infestation that's going to have to be taken care of. So basically, reinforcing the tank itself, there's a significant amount of reinforcing that's going to have to happen to the tank. The wood columns, the large diameter wood columns would remain, but there is infestation that's going to need to be taken care of in those. Option C, deconstructing the tower and moving it and then rehabilitating it. So, in other words, all of the items identified in option B to really rehabilitate would be there, plus the deconstruction and moving of the tank and all of the components to another location somewhere in Parksville. So, page 3 of 4 gets into the order of magnitude costs here, and basically option A, to demolish and remove, we're looking at in the neighborhood of $36,000. Option B, to rehabilitate the structure in place, we're looking in the neighborhood of $273,000. And option C, to deconstruct the tower, move and rehabilitate in a new location somewhere in Parksville, would be about $321,000. So I think that gives us a reasonable idea. As part of the report, we had the structural engineer identify sketches and what exactly needs to be, what needs to be done. So you'll find that there. So the report is submitted for your consideration, and that ends my presentation.
Okay. Pardon me? I'm sorry, I'm missing.
It's at the beginning. Consent agenda.
I think we've got a problem on the agenda. Just give me a second here. Mm-hmm. Oh, did we add it? Okay. Give it to me, show it to me. Oh, yes, it was point B on this on the consent agenda, where it said that it was coming in as a late proposal. It's on your agenda. It's not on theirs? Oh, okay. All right, it was. All right. Councillor O'Brien.
If I may, Your Worship, I would like to delay discussion on this decision. I move to postpone this matter until the next council meeting, since it was not on the agenda, or I can't find it on the consent agenda or in the background as well. So I would like to move to postpone this matter until the next council meeting.
We could do that, or we can defer it until budget and bring it up at the budget, at the time of budget.
As council agrees.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense, is to why bring it up and then bring it up again shortly thereafter would be my discussion.
I would amend that. May I make an amendment to that effect?
Councillor Patterson? Sorry, I thought it was on your agenda. It is on mine, so.
Can I just ask a point of clarification? Are we able to ask any questions at this point if we defer to budget deliberations?
No, it's not on the, no, I think it's got to wait until we bring it out. Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll go from there. Pardon? Councillor O'Brien?
If I may, Your Worship, to make the motion to move to postpone this matter until the next budget consideration time.
That's fine. I need a seconder. Councillor Greer. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. All right. Well, that's deferred till then. Vaughn, will it hold up until the next budget? We're okay?
I'm not playing in that part.
No, let's just wait. Okay.
Yeah,
all right, let's get back to the agenda that we all have. So Council Procedure Amendment Bylaw 2019, number 1541.2, amendments to Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 1541. Are we going to do them all at once? Yeah, okay. So we'll do, I need a mover and a seconder to take them all at one time. They're just, all right, moved by Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor Fraz. Any discussion on any of the items? All right. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Motions from previous meetings. At the present meeting on September 16th, I introduced the following motion for council: that the staff be directed to explore the feasibility of expanding the city's municipal boundaries to create a more rational and logical border, and that up to $200,000 be approved for the 2020 and 2021 budget cycle to prepare background studies and engage in appropriate professionals to provide a detailed analysis to council on steps and implications of amending the city's boundaries. I'm making that motion. I need a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Greer. Discussion. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, looking back at some of the previous boundary expansion, which is 24 plus years, I believe, this is going to take a great deal of time. I'm assuming that we have a timeline in place, or will that be what some of the studies are going to tell us?
At this, if I could, at this point in time, just answer your question. My understanding is that we will find the proper people to conduct the studies, and then we'll come up with the answers as to how long and when and so on. My expectation is we're well over a couple of years to get to the final hurdles, if in fact we get that far. So, you know, that's about where it is. Until then, we have no idea, since it hasn't been looked at since 1995, which was really just a revision from 1975. So it goes on forever back there. Councillor O'Brien. And Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Your Worship. To be clear, the proposed boundary extension has come out of the blue and has not been discussed with the rest of council. Never mentioned in the roundtable meetings, the Parksville survey, nor our strategic plan, which we as council collectively approved. To suggest that this motion is just a request to approve payment to a third party to study the boundary extensions would only be precipitated by a request or desire of those surrounding areas that would directly be affected, which is not the case. Parksville Policy 4.2 states that boundary extensions will not be undertaken unless a petition has been received by the proposed annexed district. To that policy itself, we have received no such petitions advising that they wish to become part of Parksville or to be annexed. We have not received any petition.
Order, please. We know you're happy about it, but
we have not received, if I may, Your Worship, thank you. We have not received any petition from any area requesting inclusion in the city of Parksville. In fact, we have since received communication from those surrounding districts advising us to keep our hands off, since they have no desire to be part of the city of Parksville with our higher taxes and overabundance of rules and regulations. Their comments, not mine. The request for up to $200,000 to hire consultants is a waste of taxpayer funds, and using the mayor's past formula, each additional $100,000 in expenses would equal a 1% tax increase. Some of us campaigned on the premise of keeping tax increases to a minimum, and yet this extra expense would be folly by spending taxes on a whim. Our Parksville staff are already operating at maximum capacity due to our ambitious approved strategic plan, and even hiring an extra consultant would strain our staff resources, even more so since the new hires would require training and guidance from staff constantly. To suggest that we could annex surrounding commercial industrial zones that already exist in Area F that currently broadens their tax base is like poaching and speaks of arrogance and disrespect for our neighboring communities. Parksville already has an industrial park that currently provides a source of commercial tax revenue for Parksville. And we have land adjacent to that area that may be developed as further light industrial use. Parksville is enjoying a boom in new construction, and we are still processing lots of new applications and are aware that more will follow. But with every application, there is a request to connect to the Parksville potable water service. The reality is that we will require construction of new water storage solutions just to cope with extra water demand within our existing boundaries. And contrary to some beliefs, the new water treatment plant will not create any more water. We promised the residents and businesses of Parksville that if elected, we would listen and act on their priorities, including a new swimming pool, affordable housing, crime reduction, and real downtown revitalization and increased density. We have started on this ambitious list, and we will need maximum effort from everyone involved to achieve this goal. Why would we even consider boundary extensions when we have so many deserving projects underway? The mayor has suggested that part of the reasoning for border expansion is that residents of the regional districts such as San Perel and French Creek are using Parksville infrastructure at no cost to them. And yet, as a resident of Parksville, I encourage those to use our sidewalks and our roads and to book space at our PCC. It will help their business plan immensely if they continue to use our infrastructure. Our businesses in town benefit greatly from their support, so I don't feel they're using our infrastructure that they're not entitled to. Therefore, I will not be supporting this motion.
Please. Let's conduct the meeting the way it's supposed to be, if you would please, okay? Just give it. It's not democracy for clapping, so don't hand me that. And Councillor Chandler?
Well, that is a pretty tough act to follow. Yeah, no, thanks.
You're not running for mayor, though.
I do, yeah, fair enough. I do have reservations, obviously, on the cost. It's a very expensive venture. You know, I also really appreciate that the mayor got up in front of everybody and explained himself and the process behind it. So I think, you know, when you look at both sides, I think it's something that we all have to ponder. In reality, it's an expensive scenario to even to venture into this. So I'm not really 100% sure if I want to support it at this point. I think that we've seen a bit of negative connotations from this, and so at this point, I'd say probably won't support the motion.
Councillor Fraz.
Thank you. I do think this is a great question to be asking right now and looking at our borders. I actually have heard from numerous people in the RDN and in Parksville questioning how our boundaries are put together and where people live, even through the election that you spoke of. A lot of people were wanting to vote in Parksville and then afterwards realizing they're not actually residents. There was even some people that came down to our polling stations to be told they live out in the RDN. There's things like you go to the edge of our town, just at the one block over here, the RDN is only a block away. You know, you go to our Parksville bottle depot, it's not in Parksville. You can't get to the far end of our town without going beyond the farthest end of Area G. And I think those kind of the implications that come from that and how our community is impacted, it needs to be looked at. I don't think we have those answers. So I do support having some answers come back to it. The cost part, I don't know how much it really requires. So up to that amount, perhaps it is, maybe it's less. I think that the third party is going to be the one to give us some of those answers. But when I see subdivisions going up right next to a Canadian Tire, to an arena, in between from where the schools are too, and people saying that they live out in the rural areas, I go, how is that really rural there? Like, the subdivisions are no more separated than the rest of our community, and I think when we look at what's best for our region, we need to be asking the question is what is best for everyone around our borders. So I do support this motion, and I look forward to seeing what comes out of it.
Councillor Greer and then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. That was a great speech, Councillor. The fact was, you made a lot of statements there that were not even close to being there yet. This is just an explore feasibility study. And before we can make any decisions on anything, I think we have to have a feasibility study. I think our borders are all in such a way now that you have to go through the RDN in order to get to the other side of some of our areas. I think we have to square off the city a little better. It's all over the place. And I'm involved quite heavily with the hockey and the baseball, and most of those people come from outside our borders. And they're always complaining about our facilities, and I'm saying, well, maybe we should have user fees on everything. So I think the fact that maybe taking in a little larger section is, we'll have to wait and see what the feasibility study is all about. But I'm certainly in favor of going that far. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, through your worship. That was a great explanation or speech, Councillor O'Brien. And it is a hard act to follow, but I do have some concerns. Number one, the money. It came as a surprise to me. I didn't know about it, and I really have had to do a little bit of research, a lot of letters coming in, and I'm trying to understand this bylaw that says that an application has to be made first. But I guess the money is a big issue because we do have a strategic plan, and this is not part of it. And we've discussed that we will, as things are crossed off the list, then we will take something else on. So I think that perhaps this is a bit premature. We are going to be looking at the land so council has an idea of which land we own. I do also appreciate Councillor Frows's explanation. It makes sense, and maybe we do need to do this. However, I'm worried about doing it now. And I also think that if it were to be done, I think that we should have a committee of the whole. We should perhaps even have an online survey for residents to have their say. I know there's been one in the paper, and there's been a high amount of people who have said no. And perhaps my other concern is who would really benefit, if anyone would benefit, residential, industrial area, and businesses. So, yeah, I right now I could not support this because I just don't feel that it feels like a good process. Yeah.
No, I'm going to take a shot. Councillor Wilson, every question that you brought up there is what the feasibility was supposed to answer. So, without knowing, would you please put that down? It doesn't do anything. Pardon? It's against the bylaws. Yes. So, it doesn't accomplish anything by putting it off. I mean, it's a 2 to 3 year project here. Secondly, nobody, Councillor O'Brien, I'm ashamed that you would even have brought it up. Nobody said we were going after Area F or any place else in this. We said we would look at the borders of our properties. Okay, if you look at what the motion is, I'm not finished yet. You went on for 5 minutes from somebody else's speech, so I'm going to do it now. So the reality here is that you don't know what you don't know. Would you please put that down? Put it down or I'll ask you to leave. So it's going to take 3 years at minimum to get this done. So if you start 3 years from now, you're 3 more years out. What do we do when we run out of land in the industrial area? What do we do if we run out of land for industrial sites or for residential sites? You know, it's a Parksville discussion on this part here. No. 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 How do you know what we're taking? You know what? Stop, please. We don't need you yelling and screaming here. This is supposed to be, as you said, a democracy. Everybody's allowed their say at this table here. If you want it changed, run for election the next time, okay? Yeah. No, you didn't. No. Stop. No more. No. Stop. No more discussion or I'll have to ask you to leave, all right? We're not going to get into a yelling contest here. Let's do this in an orderly fashion. The whole purpose was to investigate what this was about. It wasn't to say that we were going to do this or we were going to do that. But you don't know what you don't know. How can you make a decision without the facts? If you look at the properties around here, if you look at the map of the city of Parksville, it looks like a dog's hind leg, for God's sakes. It's all over the place. We even own property where half of our property is in the region and half of it is in Parksville. I mean, there's all kinds of issues here that needs to be sorted out. We have snow plows that come down the road, and then they get to a spot where the region is, and then they have to lift their blades up and go across and then put them back down again. We don't do that, but that's what they're supposed to do. You know, we need to get this all organized and find out what a feasibility study is. It's not a 1%, Councillor O'Brien. It's not a 1% tax increase. The only time you get a 1% tax increase is if it's year after year after year. If it's a one-shot, it's a capital expense, and it's that one time only. So yes, it is a lot of money. There's no doubt about it, but there's a lot of work here that needs to be done. We don't know what we don't know on this, so let's work on this.
Well said.
Thank you. First-time talkers first.
Is there any?
All right, Councillor O'Brien was first then. Go. I'll run the meeting. You just go.
Thank you. And Your Worship, just to answer the comments that you have made anyways, you said that you had never mentioned that you're taking over San Perel Area F or G, but I was only quoting the article that you spoke on with the reporter for the PQB News, which was Emily Vance, when we were over the UBCM, and those was what I based my questions on, and when you mentioned it, and also comments that you have forwarded as public letters to people that have been concerned. That's where I got my information from. I did not make it up, sir. It was your quotes. The other part of it was the comment about our borders, our dog's breakfast. Well, that's the way she goes, progress, but the thing is, have you ever seen Greater Victoria? Yeah, you want to see a dog's breakfast of borders, then look at Greater Victoria, Saanich, Oak Bay, everything, and you cross the street, and you're in Victoria, then you cross over, you're in Saanich. So that is already in play. So if we just want to make a nice little square box, then I suggest maybe we should be living on the prairies, because they're good at making little square boxes. My biggest problem, though, my biggest problem is the assessing of the $200,000 to actually go ahead with a feasibility study. My biggest problem is about the fact that we were never, ever asked by the constituents of Parksville who elected us, to my knowledge, to, if you get elected, will you consider extending the boundaries? I have no recollection of any of that at any of our meetings, at the round table, at the survey that has been conducted as well, or at emails and so forth. I have not had that comment once. So why are we going ahead with a proposal to answer the question that nobody asked?
Councillor Fraz.
Thanks again. As Councillor Wilson pointed out, there's a lot of questions going on right now with this, and I think this is exactly why we're asking this question here, is to looking into a feasibility of it. People have been asking for this, and I know myself, and this is where we get the chance and the opportunity for them to speak up. It's not just the people that come out on the first day to say they don't want it, but we need to have the opportunity for people to come out and say both sides of it. How can we have a debate without hearing from both sides? 24 years ago, some of our voters weren't even born yet. The people that we were asking for decisions, they weren't even around the last time this was even looked at. You have things like bylaw discrepancies as you go through the RDN into Parksville here, like fireworks, for example. You can't sell them in Parksville, but on your way home, you would be able to buy fireworks if you stopped at the log cabin store. So, and I do get emails from people in the RDN asking us, when are your bylaws for fireworks going to come in line with what we want for our community? So I think those types of things are also included in there. I see faces in this room themselves, people that are not happy with the RDN and saying, let's break off from the RDN, form our own regional district of Oceanside. Let's be separate from them. So these questions are coming forward and they are being asked of us. I understand that not everyone's heard them. That's why we need to give them a chance. I know there are people right now petitioning for this. They don't understand when there's policies in place or what kind of route you take for this type of a thing to happen, but they are asking for it, and now we're at least going to be able to figure out what the order is. I bet a lot of people here don't realize that the communities don't need to ask to be included. It's the Parksville that would annex a community without having their input, but we're looking to have their input. There's even things like around the RDN, the directors there, they don't understand the full process of it. So it's a very confusing order that we're going through. I think we really need to get these answers, at the very least, know what that looks like, and then have a conversation on to what's reasonable or not.
I think what we have to bear in mind here is that this is a 6-step process. It's not a one-step. It's not something, oh, I didn't see your hand, I'm sorry. It's a 6-step process. And during that 6 steps, each one of you will have more than your opportunity to speak your opinions. And yes, we will listen. We're not saying that we're going to do it. We're saying that we want to hear the facts on both sides so we know whether it makes sense for all of us. Not for Parksville, but for all of us. The province is not going to let us just willy-nilly stomp all over area F or G or E or any other area without having a conversation so that we can see what they have to say. And can we make it work together? If not, then the province would be the people that will say, no, you're not going to do it. It has to have an order in council. The cabinet of the province of British Columbia has to approve this. It's not something that just comes out of a meeting where people are yelling and clapping and screaming. That has nothing to do with it. It has to do with everybody having a fair and equal chance to have a conversation and say what needs to be said. Whether it's your side or somebody else's side, we need to hear everybody's opinion. And once we've had that, then we can make our recommendation to either go forward, don't go forward, to go to the province. The province can make their decision to go forward, don't go forward. This is a long process. Yes, $200,000 over the next 3 years is what we're going to spend to do this. That's the estimate on it, and I would expect that's probably a touch high, but who knows, you know, the way the costs are right now. It's possible. So all I'm suggesting is, for God's sakes, let's find out what the facts are before you all jump up and down and say no. There, all right. Councillor Patterson, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand at all.
Thank you, Your Worship. A lot of passion around the table, definitely. I understand and fully understand where you're coming from. But I also understand where Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Chandler and Councillor Wilson have also spoken about the timeline and that it wasn't discussed in our first 9 months of council. And whether we put this on today or we put this on in our last year of this term, it's going to happen at some point in time. I look at some of the areas in our community in Martindale, where one side of the street is the city of Parksville and the other is RDN. Those are the questions, those are the areas that need to seriously be looked at. I understand the process, but I'm going to have to decline as well, because I don't think that we're ready at this point in time. We have a very aggressive and optimistic agenda in this term of council, and I don't believe that this is something that needs to be added to it at this point in time.
Anybody else? Councillor O'Brien for the...
Thank you, Your Worship. The point, maybe it was glossed over because I just had a couple. The staff time that would be used, even if we hired outside consultants, realistically, you know what goes on in the office here. I got my real education just in the last 10 months. The office, the administration, the engineering and so forth, they're going flat out. And the thing is that any consultant would have so much hand-holding just to find out where the bathroom is. But the thing is, it's going to take staff time. Our staff are putting in all sorts of overtime that's over and above the call of duty, and they're doing it on their own volition because they work hard and they believe in their job. And the thing is, this is going to be a huge, huge overload for our staff. And so, if for nothing else, that would be another consideration right away. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? I will call the question. All those in favor of the motion? And opposed? Thank you. Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make a motion, but I would like to request approval from the majority of council to introduce the following motion without notice. Do I have everyone's permission? It's to do with the hourly meetings that we have. Instead of having them at 6 o'clock, we moved them to 2 o'clock.
We need a seconder for the motion, for the idea of carrying, okay. All those in favor for bringing it forward now rather than next meeting? Yeah, notice, without notice. We're going without notice.
We're going without notice. We're going to make a decision tonight. That's what I'm suggesting.
Rather than push it off.
Rather than go another week or 2 weeks.
So all those in favor, not of the motion of doing it, just of discussing it now? Okay. Against?
Okay,
you can't go forward.
What's
Councillor Fraz voted against you. You can't go forward.
Oh. So you wanted it as a notice of motion then?
Okay.
The council agreed to amend the start time for all council and provisional budget meetings from 6 p.m. back to 2 p.m. on a trial basis for the remainder of the 2019 year, and direct staff to update the public meeting schedule accordingly.
Okay. So that's notice of motion for the next meeting.
Need a seconder?
You're chairing the next meeting,
Okay.
so you got it. Okay. Who's bringing this one in? Council?
Doug O'Brien.
Oh, you have one. You also want to do it today?
Yes, Your Worship, I have a motion I would like to put before council at this time, but I would also need approval from unanimous consent from the rest of council to do it. The notice of motion would be it's to ask for council contingency to support the first annual series of holiday performances in the atrium, Parksville Civic and Technology Center, and what it is I'll get into more details. It's called Cookies and Carols of the City, and it's due to the fact that the PDBA has decided this year for the Christmas celebrations not to have their annual tree lighting
Okay,
event.
Hold on, sorry.
That's all. What it's all about.
Okay, that's fair. So we need a seconder for his motion to. Okay, Councillor Wilson. All those in favor of moving it today? All right, now please feel free. Sir, who's got a kid?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to make a motion at this time. The motion is asking for funding from council contingency to support the first annual series of holiday performances in the atrium, Parkville Civic and Technology Center. Concerts are proposed for midday on 4 Thursdays from November 28th to December 19th. We hope this will begin an annual tradition for the city of Parksville to fill the atrium with the festive sounds of Christmas, while showcasing local choirs and helping to raise holiday spirits. The public would be invited to bring their voices to sing along. A decorated 15-foot LED Christmas tree in the atrium will add to the spirit, as well as Christmas cookies for all. Staff anticipates the budget for the first year to be $2,500, which includes the one-time purchase of the tree and decorations of $1,600. Staff time will also be required to assemble the tree and prepare the atrium for the concerts. Staff will contact the PCTC building partners for approval of this event. Promotion of this concert series would be through social media, city news page, community calendars, and the city's website. The resolution being that council would approve $2,500 from council contingency for the 2019 Cookies and Carols at the City Concert Series, proposed for 4:30s from November 28th to December 19th, 2019.
It's a move. I need a seconder. Councillor Patterson. Discussion? I have one question before we do that, if we could. I just want to make sure we have the money in contingency. Okay, we do? All right, then that's fine. Councillor Wilson and Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, through your worship. Councillor O'Brien, I'm just wondering about the soft shore exhibit that we've just approved tonight going in the atrium. Oh, well, yes, he would like it up actually before January, but I'm kind of teasing, but just didn't want a conflict with the tree.
Could we do both? Councillor Patterson and Councillor O'Brien. You had your hand up.
I did. Thank you. Councillor O'Brien said, for staff and everything to put it up, but I think that this would be a lovely opportunity for community engagement and council revelry. I'm not sure if that's the correct word. But I do know that the Parksville Community Center is also having tree decorating, and so I think that this would also be a great opportunity to tie things kind of together with part of our Christmas celebrations. And I use the word Christmas.
I'm with you on that, by the way. All right. Councillor O'Brien, you're next.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will comment on if I may, through to Councillor Wilson. Councillor Wilson, yes, I do agree that the Soft Shores exhibit has been moved back to January, but that's a date that we can determine. So far, we do not have the power yet to move the date of Christmas, so that's why we're asking for it early. Not yet. So the other thing is, and Councillor Patterson, as well, your question regarding cooperating with the PCC people with their decorating would be also tied in with this event as well. Thank you.
Councillor Chandler and then Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Fraz.
Through your worship to CAO Keller. Kiva, could you tell me, do we provide any funds to the PDBA specifically for the light up, just so that, does the money wash in any way whatsoever?
If I may, Your Worship.
You may.
In previous years, Council has provided money through support for hanging lights, but it is not an ongoing line item, so this wouldn't basically have any impact on that. I believe the PDBA is not participating in the light up this year, so this is seen as a way to supplement that activity.
Thank you.
Councillor Fraz.
Through you to staff, is there any indication if PDBA will resume the light up in future years? And the reason why I ask is if we put that soft shore exhibit up and it becomes a permanent structure, and then at Christmas time that's where we plan to put the tree, we'll be looking for a new spot then next year. And
if I may, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Fraz, we had discussed putting the tree off to the side so that we could basically secure it. It wasn't going to fall on anybody. So we would probably be able to accommodate both if that was the case a year from now. We would make sure we would accommodate both.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't want to be the humbug here on Christmas, but we have got a motion on the books here that we do not give any more money out other than grant and aid. And tonight already we're spending, what are we spending, $5,000, $6,000? So I'm wondering, do we have that kind of money, and should we go ahead when we already have a motion on the books that we do not give out any more money? Yeah, we do. Yeah.
CEO will answer.
If I may, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Greer, we do actually have some funds remaining in council contingency, and this would be considered giving money to the city itself rather than a grant. And some of the items that we're discussing with respect to the tree would remain property of the city. So we don't typically require the same financial information as we would from individuals seeking grants. After tonight, if both items are approved, the council contingency is pretty much maxed out at the $25,000 that we allot each year. So that's something for council just to be aware of.
Everybody, no other questions? I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Pardon me? I'm sorry. Okay, just a second. I'm just a little concerned about their timing from the MAC with the display. Can we do both of them at the same time, or would that be too much?
If I may.
I'm sorry, I'm going here.
Sorry, if I may, Your Worship. I think we could accommodate both. We would have to look, obviously, at the size and making sure there's safe passage. One thing that I know from traditions and myself is that you're not supposed to have Christmas decorations up past January 6th. So
tell my wife that.
It's the Feast of the Epiphany, apparently, from my Catholic school days. So one of the items that we could consider is timing it so that the Christmas decorations come down on January 5th or 4th or whatever day works, and then installing the artwork very early in January. But we will certainly look at whether we could accommodate both at the same time. I believe the artwork would be going more in the center of the atrium, and as mentioned, we've talked about having the tree kind of beside where the totem pole is, so against the side of the building, rather than in the middle.
The reason I was asking that question is that if we're going to bring in electricians to do for the artwork and for the Christmas tree, you don't want to bring them in at the same time to do it all at once, I would expect. No, are you sure?
If I may, Your Worship, there are electrical outlets on the side wall, basically the library wall, and that is part of the reason why we thought we would put the tree there, so that we could plug it in and not have cords going kind of in the walkway there. We would probably have to bring in the electrician for the installation in the center, but I don't think there'd be a conflict between the two.
Okay.
That I can
Just
see.
want to clear it. All right, any other questions? Then call the question. We did. Yep, we're there. All right. Next. Notice of motion. Yes, he does.
Okay, so I have a notice of motion for our next council meeting. That will be at 6 o'clock. It's a committee to review the park development. So the motion is that the mayor appoint a standing committee comprised of 2 councillors and 2 staff members to provide recommendations to council on the timing and implementation of priority actions outlined in the Community Parks Master Plan and Parks, Trails, and Open Spaces Master Plan, and that staff prepare a draft terms of reference for approval by the mayor, outlining the committee meeting dates, objectives, timelines, and timelines for reporting back to council and roles of members.
Thank you. See that next week, or next meeting, rather. All right, next. Do we have another one? Yeah, that one's done. I think we got them all in. Councillor O'Brien.
If I may, Your Worship, it's not another notice of motion. It is just a comment at this time under new business, if I may.
Feel free.
Wake up. Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, many people in the audience and outside of the audience know that we attended the UBCM this last 2 weeks ago. At this time, the UBCM, I just wanted to express my gratitude to the City of Parksville for the opportunity to attend the UBCM in Vancouver 2 weeks ago. The entire event was informative and educational. I never realized how much I didn't know before this conference. The speakers and seminars were exceptional, and the opportunity to vote on important resolutions suggested by various BC municipalities was an amazing process. I truly felt proud to be part of this entire event. I just want to express thank you to the City of Parksville for allowing us to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business? Pardon me. Councillor Wilson.
Through you, Your Worship, I just want to second what Councillor O'Brien said. It was a fantastic UBCM. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you. All right. Any other? No new business? Special business? I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that pursuant to Section 91A, G, K, and N of the Community Charter Council proceed to a closed meeting to consider items relating to personal information about identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, litigation discussions respecting the proposed provisions of a municipal service, and consideration of whether a meeting should be closed. So we have all of that moved by Councillor Fraz, seconded by Councillor Wilson. All those in favor? All right, moving on. Thank you. Pardon? 5 minutes. Yes, you do.